All right, everybody, welcome back to another Reup Productions Podcast. Today we have Mallory Moreno with Chuhak and Tecson.
Yes.
Right?
Yep, that's it. You got
All right,
it.
yes. I always mess it up, but it's just I'm in my head. Mallory, I always start off by telling everybody how excited I am to speak with them, but I'm uber excited to talk to you because of your career path and like how that's not necessarily something a lot of attorneys go down. You decided to like really help people in their elder years, being an elder law attorney. So talk to me and more about like, how'd you get down the law path?
Right. Yeah, so I'm the first attorney in my family, so it wasn't like it was necessarily something that I was born into, but I do like to argue. So it's kind of naturally drawn toward wanting to be a lawyer when I was younger, but I always thought I was going to do family law. I had an aunt who went through a nasty divorce, and so I just kind of thought, yeah, that's something I should do, help people. It'll be a good way to connect with people one-on-one. But then when I was in college, I took a gerontology class. I was always really close with my grandparents on both my mom and my dad's side, and I was always kind of drawn to the elderly population, and I didn't even know until I took that class that elder law was a thing.
Right.
So I had already decided I was going to go to law school, but when I took that class, they told this story about this older couple, and the husband had had a stroke and was going to end up having nursing home care, really high care needs. And his wife, they'd been married, they're in like the 80s or something like that. And they'd been married for decades, and they weren't going to be able to afford the care that he needed. And in this article that we read, the only option that they were going to have was to get divorced, so that he wouldn't have any money, she'd have all the money, and he would be eligible for Medicaid to pay for his care. And I thought that was really tragic and sad. Yeah, and of course they still loved each other. They didn't want to, but it was the only option for them to be able to pay for what they needed. And so that's when I first learned about elder law, because the article goes on to talk about this field of law. And for me, it was kind of like a light bulb moment of, okay, well, that's definitely what I'm supposed to be doing. So from that moment on, I knew I was going to do that, and went to DePaul here in Chicago for that purpose, to go to school for elder law. And then started clerking and never looked back. I've practiced in elder law my whole career.
That's crazy. That's crazy that one like little, not even little, but one article can kind of shape the trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, I've actually reached out to that professor more recently, the one that I had in college, just to tell her that it was a big deal for me, that class and that article. And I do the pre-law advisory board now for my undergrad, where I had this class. So yeah.
Oh, wow.
Really
so what does that mean specifically, kind of doing that portion of it?
Yeah, so I went to Miami of Ohio, and they get a lot of their alumni together on these boards. When I was there, because I'm old, there was not a pre-law program yet. But now, I mean, there was, but it didn't really mean anything. But now they have actual alumni who sit on this board. They do a lot of student interaction. They'll come to campus to do like a networking day. I just on my own connect with students quite often to just see, kind of like a mentor program to see, how can I help you in your career? What kind of connections might I be able to help you with? Are you interested in coming to Chicago?
Yeah.
I guest lectured a few months ago back in campus. So it's awesome. It's a really good opportunity for alumni to be able to give back and kind of help students who have no clue what the next step is going to be with law school.
All right. The giving back part is pretty awesome. That's something like recently for us, we started going back to the community college I went to and like getting interns and like just the ability to touch the next generation. Even in our industry, I kept thinking like, man, I would have loved someone like kind of like me in the business, like creating their own business and like helping them navigate it. Like how I can only imagine like how helpful that is.
Well, it's not like there's a lot of people that are just dying to do it too. So it's really helpful, because I think especially that college age into law school, you're nervous. You don't, it's uncomfortable to say, all right, I'm going to just blind email this person because they guest lectured and gave their email up on the PowerPoint and see if they can get coffee. That's uncomfortable. And so I like it because to me, it kind of breaks that barrier of you don't have to stress about making the reach. I'll reach.
Yeah.
Because I wish somebody would have done that for
Totally.
me. You know, what are the things? Who are the people you can talk to?
Yep.
Networking isn't comfortable yet. They're not in their careers. Law school isn't going to teach them how to be a lawyer. And so
teaches you the law.
Yeah, it teaches you how to read or think like a lawyer, but the networking, that piece of it, because it is a service.
Yeah.
So there's a piece of it that you need to connect. You need to be able to sell. You need to be able to meet people where they're at. And so I love it because I think that students really respond because maybe they're not getting that a lot. So
there's a couple things you said. The service aspect of it is something that, I'm in a service-based business that I can really relate to. I think, and maybe say if I'm wrong, but I always feel like people get a type of way about lawyers in general that they are like a little bit more surly or like kind of shitty, for lack of a better word. But I will say, I've met so many lawyers have been like some of the nicest, like caring, like service forward. Yeah,
I completely agree with that. In fact, a big part of my practice, in addition to the elder law piece of it, which I can talk about later, kind of what that means, but there's a large part of my practice that's litigation focused as well.
Yeah.
So, I'm handling probate estates, people fighting over money, or guardianships where people are fighting over who's going to help mom or dad when they can't make decisions for themselves anymore. And you get to see some really dark sides of people.
Sure.
You also can get to see some dark sides of attorneys. And so I do think I have a lot of times where I'm just sitting there thinking, wow, this attorney and client really found a great match in one another. They are a match made in heaven. But, it's funny, my dad, I'm really close with my parents, and my dad, one of his favorite things to say to people is that, well, he's very proud to say his daughter's a lawyer, but loves to say that she's not the kind of lawyer that you think. She's not a lawyer that's just going to bill you or be a jerk or try to stab you in the back.
She's one of the good guys.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And it's true. I literally love what I do and the clients I serve, and 90% of the time people are not coming to me chill and ready to just shoot the shit. They're coming to me in a crisis.
Yeah.
And the lawyers that have this reputation of being, snakes or gouging the billing or anything like, it's just not going to fly in my world. It doesn't serve the purpose that I'm here to serve. I have to help these people. Some of them are in really tight financial spots. Some of them are in literally life or death situations of trying to figure out their care or where they're going to live or what's going to happen to their loved ones. And it's just not, if that's the type of lawyer that you're going to be, there's a time and place for that in certain types of law.
Sure.
Elder law is not.
Yeah.
It's just not the place for that.
How do you think, so as like moving into your career, how do you think like you've changed as an individual, like especially with some of those like harder things, like patience, like all those things? What has this helped you, and like what has it taught you?
Oh yeah, of course it has. So I remember very vividly the first couple of years of practice, I would cry a lot with my clients on the phone, to the point where I'd come home and tell my husband, oh my gosh, I had this horribly sad call today, and I was crying. And he's a very good sounding board for me. He's very chill and level compared to me. He's very emotional. And he basically said, Mallory, they're not calling you because they want you to cry with them, although it shows you still have an emotion, you still have a soul in the world that you're helping. But they're not calling for that. They're calling for confidence, for help, for assistance and security. Sure. And, I can remember a client, if that's okay, I'm not going to share his name, but
I don't care.
I remember one that I cried really hard. He was calling about his wife. She was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. It was very advanced. And he had traditionally, as a boomer family, so he had done he was the breadwinner. He handled the finances for the family. She handled the home. And it was near Christmas time.
Yeah.
And he called me, and he's crying because he doesn't know where she keeps the Christmas decorations. And she's at home, and he's trying to care for her. And he doesn't know how to do it by himself. He doesn't know how to decorate the house or even where to find everything. And she can't help him. And he's clearly fatigued as a caregiver for her. And it's just not the marriage that he originally had. And so I'm crying on this phone call. I'll never forget it. And that was the day that I really came home, talked to my husband about it, and thought, okay, I have to kind of pull it together because he needs answers. I'm not helping him by doing this. I love what I do and I feel for him. And I need to tell him, what can we do to help you? What can we do to stop the fatigue? What can we do to find her the care that she needs that's not just you?
Yeah.
And how do we make, your life
better
and hers,
Yeah.
and hers.
There's something to be said about the strong force in like a negative, like in a strong force, but the like when something goes wrong, being able to be the one that someone looks at and
Yeah.
you're like, just like holding it down, making sure that like things get done and there's
Yeah.
time to grieve, time to be upset, but like now there's like action that needs to be taken and,
Yeah.
and to be the strong point. There's something to be said about that and that skill.
I mean, it's my favorite part about my job because it's very satisfying to be that person that can give the answer when someone's in a crisis.
Sure.
It's very satisfying. So, how have I changed? I'm definitely more confident in my practice, but also I feel like I have a lot stronger grasp on this is my professional role. I don't have to bring it home. I will because I'm an empath by nature, so I will bring it home. But I can do my job. I can do it efficiently. I can do it well.
Yeah. And stay clear.
And stay
even.
clear. That's right. My
Yeah.
mind can stay clear on what does this family need? What does this client need?
Wow. What are probably something you didn't even think would happen in all of it.
You mean with my career?
Yeah, just like that skill, that like one of those things that's so interesting that just through transitive property, that's what's happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's led to some of my proudest moments of my career at this point.
Yeah.
I currently am a partner at Chuhak and Tecson, where you nailed the name.
Let's go.
I was a partner at my prior firm. I'm a partner here. I'm very proud of that. It's led to.
It's not an easy task.
No, it's not. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hours. I'm a mom, so it's also even more challenging to juggle, that part of my life and my professional life. But it's also, we have recently started an elder law practice at the firm.
Okay.
And so knowing that I've embraced this practice, knowing that I've embraced the confidence, building these skills, representing these clients, understanding how to navigate it, has led me to the point where I was able to even, very confidently meet with the team here and say, this is something that I think we need to be doing. It's a skill that I can bring to the table. And now we're sitting here with our 13th practice group in elder law with 3 partners and staff doing this work, building that here. And, I think that's pretty incredible. I feel like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing with these clients.
Yeah. What a just like even that, like a red of refreshing thing to be like, I feel really confident and stable and like, what a purpose that must feel like.
I mean, it's not normal. Honestly, it's not. I mean, the beginning of the career is so tough. There's such a steep learning curve.
Sure.
So to feel that is really lucky. That's not lost on me.
Yeah.
I know that it can be really tough. Law firms have a rep. There's a reputation out there. People struggle when you're an associate. It is tough.
Yeah.
So it's not something that's lost on me that I feel really lucky to be happy and content with what I'm doing.
Where do you think the ability to I don't want to even say climb fast, but I'm sure you've put in a good amount of work to get there, but
Yes.
Where do you think that comes from? Is that something you learned? Is that something that was some people just work hard, but is that something that was taught to you?
Well, probably. There's some nature nurture, I would say, aspects of both of it. I've always been a perfectionist, an overachiever, very much over the top. Pretty much my whole life. My parents, I remember when I was studying for the bar exam, I was at that time dating my husband and my now husband, and they called him after I passed the bar and said, well, if you made it through the bar exam, then you're probably going to stay with her for the rest of her life, because that's just all I know is put it in overdrive and go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think
Your stop button might be broken.
we're working on that. We're working on that, Bobby. All right, I'm working on it. But
no worries.
I will say
Some
too.
people said the same about me.
Yeah, But my parents, they're incredibly hard workers. My mom is in corporate America, outnumbered by men, so she's tough. I watched that my whole life. My dad took over my grandpa's business. He's in construction, and I mean, the two like faux pas in my life growing up were to never lie and never be lazy. So
Sure.
it's just,
I think that's
it's a thing.
I really firmly believe this, that like hard work is just the prerequisite to anything successful. Like talent, there's a old thing like, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't try hard, like all that stuff. I like firmly think that is like probably to my core, and it probably stems from, my father or, my mother too, all of them.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
So elder law specifically, it's kind of a niche industry within law. Mm-hmm. How does one even like, I know you went to the article, but how do you even get, because there's not a lot of people that do it. No. So how do you get down that path?
Yeah. So I actually specifically chose DePaul because they had a family law program, and within the family law program, they included elder law under that umbrella. So I knew that I was going to get at least a little bit of exposure that way. And I say this to law students now when I talk to them, and some, roll their eyes, or some, maybe they don't believe that the resources are there, but I was really adamant about, if an advisor says, come to me and I'll try to find a job for you, or do this, do that. I did it. I really was adamant about, I want to find, I interned one summer at a nonprofit that serviced elderly individuals that were below the poverty level. I interned for a judge, so doing stuff from that angle and seeing what the government side looks like. And then I started a private firm, and that's where I practiced for almost 10 years before I came to Chuhak, and that was an elder law firm. And all of those were placements from advisors, or at least setting up the interviews for me to be able to try to get those jobs. But then, I think like any field of law, once you're in it, it is a very small world. But you do then start to get comfortable navigating through it, because some of my best friends in law are just colleagues that I've met at the Daily Center because we've been on cases. Everybody knows everybody. We're all looking out for each other, or bouncing. My mentor in this field is not even an attorney I've ever worked with. We've just been on cases together. I consider him a mentor. I've told him so. Once you're kind of in this world, you're in it if it's something you like. And then there's also an aspect, because some people will play it a little loose and fast with how they define elder law, or how, if they call themselves an elder law attorney, what that means. So I am a certified elder law attorney, and a few years ago, there were only 17 in the whole state, although just yesterday I was looking, because I'm getting ready to go to a conference later this year, and it looks like there are now only 13 certified elder law attorneys in the whole state of Illinois.
Nice.
So what that means is that I or any other certified elder law attorney in the state has practiced for a set number of years at minimum in the field, and then we sat for what is essentially a second bar exam. And the pass rate is just something bananas in Illinois. It's awful. It was not fun. It's not. It was terrible. It was.
You go to the moon.
That's right. So we got through that hazing process and passed. But that is something I'm really proud of, because that exam, that whole thing, is very heavy in the long-term care side of elder law, which is navigating the world of Medicaid, navigating the world of nursing homes, nursing home contracts, placement, residence rights. What are asset protection ways that we can help an elderly couple or a couple with disabilities navigate how to pay for that. Special needs planning. So there's a lot of helping individuals of any age deal with disabilities and public benefits programs, veterans benefits, things like that. Whereas the other aspect of elder law that I also include in my practice is that probate, that guardianship, trust administration, or litigation pieces, where I'm in court dealing with the administration of someone's estate, or dealing with a minor who needs a guardian for whatever reason. Maybe they've come into money that is more than they're allowed to have as a minor. Maybe their parents, something's happened to their parents and they need somebody to make decisions.
You're not allowed to have a specific amount as a minor?
At least in Cook County.
That's crazy.
Illinois is really challenging because there's Illinois and then there's Cook County.
Yeah.
So Cook has some unique rules, but here it's $10,000 or more. If you come into that like an inheritance or something like that, then you're going to need a guardianship pretty much for a minor.
That's not even that much. I mean, it's a good amount, but
it's not,
in the grand scheme of it.
That's right. And so, that makes planning important. It makes trying to anticipate if that's going to happen for me. You can't always. Sometimes accidents happen. I had a horrific minor's guardianship a couple years ago where it was these twin girls. They were 13, and their parents went out of the country for a wedding and tragically got in a car accident, and both parents passed. And now these little girls are by themselves. They have an aunt coming from out of the country to come be their guardian and manage everything that they're getting from their parents and basically step in as new parents for them.
Whoa, that's wild.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
That is insane. Has there ever been a time where you've worked with someone where their like family is just like, I don't want to do this?
Oh, absolutely. You mean from the guardianship perspective?
Yeah, even like as someone gets older and like becomes elderly, like
yes,
where they're just like throw their hands up. How does that work?
100%. I had a call like that yesterday.
That's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. The last thing that I'm gonna focus specifically in the elderly population.
Sure, yeah.
Even though it is a common misconception that as an elder law attorney, all my clients are elderly, that's not the case. So sometimes I'm representing a child or a grandchild of an aging person or somebody with disabilities. That could happen at any age, or any wealth level for that matter. But focusing on an aging population, the last thing that somebody in that population wants to hear is that they can't manage their stuff. Right? I remember with my own grandpa, the hardest moment of his life was when his keys were taken away from him. Jeez. When you're taking that last moment of somebody's independence and like their self, it's really, really hard for people. And so, yes, the challenge is I don't need that, or that's not going to happen to me, or it's just a senior moment that I'm having. It's not an actual diagnosis. I'm just having some memory issues for a little bit. It's not a big deal. I don't need that help. I'm fine. I'm not a child. And that's a really hard hurdle to get over with people. A lot of times I find if I tell them that it's, that this is something that I also have, I have my documents in order. This is something I have talked about with my husband and my family, or this is something that I've told my parents that they need to do, and they're in this age range.
Sure.
That can help with those kinds of conversations because it's not something that I'm talking to clients about because of course, there's a financial aspect to it, but it's not something I'm talking to them because this is how I'm looking to get rich. This is necessary. If you don't, here's all the things that could happen if we don't have these conversations. So I know it's really difficult, and wouldn't it be more difficult if this thing happened?
Yeah.
Can't we do this easy thing now?
And just have a tough conversation rather than, there was and this isn't quite the same, but it's adjacent. Where I had someone in close to me, her father passed away, and then they didn't have everything as far as the will kind of figured out, and then it left this whole gray area for their mother to like kind of figure out. And just talking to them about it, and it's not quite the same, but it is in the same like breath of like planning for the.
Oh, it's 100%. That's
okay.
That is 100% a normal conversation I could have on any given day with a client.
Okay.
Absolutely. That happens a lot. Even.
Or we'll get to it next week, and then next week something happens, and then you're like, we were just talking about this.
Yes.
It's like kind of crazy the fate of it all.
Absolutely, because it's not something. These conversations aren't fun, right? Everything that I'm talking to my clients about is typically about aging, dying, or disabilities. Nobody wants to die. It's not like I'm shooting rainbows and butterflies out while I'm talking to people.
You will die.
Yeah, you will die. So let's talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about that. So it's so much easier to say, okay, I paid you. Can we just be done with this? I don't want to do this conversation. I don't want to think about, oh gosh, what if I'm on life support?
Yeah.
Do I need to have Jenny pull the plug? You know, these are hard, real conversations. So that circumstance is so common. And then, you know, in the situation of the gentleman I was telling you about that was trying to figure out the Christmas decorations, then you're in these circumstances where inevitably the person who passed was the person who handled everything.
Right.
So now not only do we not have anything in place and we don't know what this person wanted, now we're searching through, I don't know, banker's boxes and trying to find the key to the safe deposit box to find where the documents might be.
Right.
And, you know, then you're me sitting in your office getting quite literally a trash bag full of paper that the family's just like, we don't know. Look through it. There's something in there. And, you know, you're pulling out a stock certificate from 1973 that nobody knew they had, and you're just trying to figure it out. And it's hard. You know, if people just, I bet I wouldn't even have a job anymore if people just communicated.
Really?
I mean, if you could just talk about it, just talk with your family, talk with your loved ones. What are your plans? What do you want? You know, these things can be done so quickly and save so much time, and it's astounding that people don't.
So when you say that, that makes me kind of want to ask you, like,
Yeah.
what are the things that if you were talking to someone, and more specifically as the parent specifically is getting older, like had the conversation, what are the like 5 things that would make your life easier and maybe benefit them the most?
Yes. Number 1, do you have an estate plan? So have you done a will? Have you done a trust? Do you have powers of attorney? That's like, that is huge, because a power of attorney is a document. There's a healthcare power of attorney and there's a financial power of attorney. These are documents that are in effect while somebody is alive. So if something happened to you, God forbid, but you're still alive, but you can't make decisions for yourself anymore, a power of attorney document is allowing you to name somebody that you trust to make choices for you, whether healthcare, medical, personal decisions, or financial, deal with your assets, your accounts, things like that. When people don't have that, and then something happens, like a stroke or a dementia diagnosis or a surgery that something went wrong or whatever it is, the next option then is a guardianship, which is in court, which is public, which is expensive, and which lasts for the rest of the person's life until they no longer have a disability or they pass away. And those are really tough pills for families to swallow. So it is almost right after, do you have an estate plan? And does it include powers of attorney? Because signing what could be, in the grand scheme of things, a very straightforward document to name somebody to do these things can be such a time saver in the end, to the tune of thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And then kind of like a subset of do you have your powers of attorney is, did you work with an elder law attorney when you did that?
Yeah.
And the reason for that question is because when I do powers of attorney for clients versus maybe anybody else who is an estate planning attorney but maybe not well versed in elder law, my power of attorney documents that I do for clients are almost 25 pages, where somebody else's power of attorney might be 3 pages.
Okay.
The reason for that
level of detail.
Yeah, there's all these additional authorities that I include in that document to try to essentially accommodate any potential circumstance that could come up for this person during their life that would allow their power of attorney agent, the person they've named, to do what they need to do to make sure that long-term care plan is properly in place without having to go to court to deal with that.
Okay.
And so that is also really helpful, because so often when people are coming to us and they are a married couple dealing with these different care situations or medical diagnoses or whatever it is, a lot of times the first thing I'm having to do is say, does the person still have the capacity level to sign new powers of attorney? Because this isn't going to get us anywhere. We're going to end up in court and guardianship to do the things we need to do to protect this person during their life.
Question, and I don't want to derail you from going down your list, but why would you have to go to court? Like, I guess if you have a power of attorney and it's 1 page, but who's taking someone to court about a medical issue? Is it sometimes the family? Is it sometimes literally the state? Is it mostly family?
Usually it's family, Usually these conflicts are family. If it's a medical issue,
it's family on family
that's
being
right.
like,
That's
no,
right.
that's not.
Yep.
Okay.
They've had
Makes sense.
Some of the judges have told stories in the probate division in Cook County in particular of having the camera up because the alleged person with disabilities, it's called the respondent, or if they are adjudicated disabled, they're called a ward, in a hospital room with Zoom going on life support, where the family's in court in a trial arguing over whether or not to discontinue that because the paper wasn't signed to note that, right?
Wow.
So and that's ugly. That's of course an extreme ugly example, but it's still a thing that could happen. And more often you're going to court for financial stuff, right?
Yeah. I'd imagine financial.
Of course. Well, and not just people fighting over who's going to get what money, but, maybe you did do a power of attorney and maybe it is pretty good, but maybe we're in a situation now where dad's going into a nursing home and we need him to qualify for Medicaid to pay for it because he can't afford $15,000 a month out of pocket for a private expense at the nursing home, right, to privately pay. So now he needs Medicaid to pay for that, which, by the way, is the most popular payer source in Illinois to pay for long-term care in nursing homes.
Yeah.
So that's a common misconception that Medicaid's only for the poor. That's not true. No, Bill Gates can afford it.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't know if you can. None of my business. But $15,000 a month, that's pretty steep. And that's average, right, for a private room, unless you want a random roommate, like it's freshman year of college all over again when you're 85.
Give it the old college try again.
All right, there you go. Maybe you'll make a new BFF. So, this is a really common scenario. Now they need to figure out how to qualify for Medicaid.
Yeah.
Maybe they have a retirement account that was just in their name. It's something they've been adding to over the years, whatever. But the power of attorney doesn't give the person they named to help them authority to mess with that retirement account. And that retirement account is what's standing in between dad and qualifying for Medicaid.
Okay.
So now we're in a situation where even though you did a power of attorney, you thought ahead, the power of attorney itself isn't robust enough, and now we're still going to guardianship court to get authority from the court to access this account and deal with it.
So it's just headaches.
Yeah, of course.
We
It's
can
red
figure it
tape
out.
after red tape.
Yeah.
Which is why I say, talking to an elder law attorney about it can be so helpful because it's not, if you're dabbling, right? If you're somebody who dabbles in the elder law world, you're gonna get yourself in hot water really, really fast because it's not the surface level rules, it's the exceptions to the rules and the exceptions to the exceptions to the rules that get clients where they need to be safely because I'm not exaggerating when I say one mistake in this type of planning, this asset transfers and trusts and what have you, could literally be catastrophic. It could lead to hundreds of thousands of dollars in bills
Legal
for the
bills,
family.
yeah.
Not even legal. Nursing home bills. Paybacks to the state of Illinois. There's a lot that a client could end up having happen.
Totally.
To the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars if you make one mistake in how you did something.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's wild. The stakes are pretty high.
Yeah, that pressure's a little too much for me.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot.
So you've done the trust, the estate planning, you've gotten the power of attorney, kind of figured out what are the next couple steps you would recommend to someone.
After I've done that with a client, the next thing is talk to your family.
Okay.
Let the people know. In fact, there's been some recent changes in Illinois law anyway on powers of attorney that make conversations seem like they're going to be necessary. But it's only as good as what you do, right? It's only as good as what you've told your family are your wishes. So we could have signed and have done everything perfectly right, and all the documents are pristine and organized and say exactly what you want. But that doesn't change Johnny from being named the power of attorney by mom and dad because he's the boy and he's the oldest, from fighting with Susie because Susie says, Mom would have never wanted that. You're not doing what Mom wanted. And Johnny says, I'm the oldest and I got named, so I'm doing it this way. So even if the documents say it, if there wasn't a conversation, if there wasn't a family meeting or something to let mom or dad or client fill in the blank tell the family what they wanted, it could still lead to all of this stuff being for naught.
I'd be like, you guys need to record it.
Yeah, I mean, well, that has some of its own implications. I mean, if I was litigating against it, sure, record it. I'll use that in discovery. But no, it's, my own parents, for example, they, they were dragging their feet like everybody does with doing their estate plan and getting everything in order. Then as soon as they did, I told them, even though my brother and I don't always see eye to eye on everything, we're very different people, but we all said, all of us, we're going to sit down, mom and dad, tell us, because what I think or what my brother thinks are your wishes might be different.
Yeah.
So tell me, what do you want for your funeral?
Yeah.
Do you want to be buried?
Yeah.
Do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be kept alive for as long as possible, no matter what the costs, even if you're in a comatose state?
Sure.
What are your wishes? Where do you want this stuff to go? What is there, a particular piece of jewelry that's really important for you to pass down to Nick, my brother, to a son? Is there something that's really important for me to know, or a reading that you want done at this? These are, again, they're morbid, tough conversations, but they really can make a huge difference.
You don't have families, to once.
No, and the families that do it,
yeah,
it is a lot smoother.
Yeah.
It's very rare, but I love when I get these phone calls of all the siblings get along. Everybody's getting along. We're all on the same page. I'm like, okay, well, press pause because I need to get the newspapers in here.
Yeah.
Because we've got a really rare moment happening.
I'm literally about to call my dad and be like, we all need to sit down.
I mean, I'm doing it with my husband's family because, and that's another unique situation, but my husband is first generation here, and so his whole family is from El Salvador, and it's really different too with different immigrant families as well. And it's not just Salvadoran families, it's across the board. There's just a different outlook on how these conversations go, how estate planning works, how maybe the family had planned things in El Salvador, but how the court systems require it to be here or something like that. Those can be really challenging conversations. And so we're doing the same thing where I've had some of his aunts ask me, can we all sit down and just ask questions? Because I think questions I have would really help my mom, who is the matriarch and doesn't want to think about any of this, but we're all the ones that are going to deal with it when something happens. Can we all talk about it? Because it's just not the same across cultures.
It's weird. I've had that conversation a good amount with people, like when we're talking about things with our parents and all that. Like, how like a lot of them, especially, I've got a large Mexican friend base that where it's an interesting conversation with their parents where they like really don't want to talk about it, and it's like they're like, there's a lot of things here. There's things in Mexico. There's things here. How are we going to organize this? And they're like, they don't really want to have that conversation, but.
Well, and the care too. I mean, it's really hard for people to navigate that sometimes because, I'm going to keep using my husband's family because it's such a vivid example for me, but it was never going to be the case that his great grandma, who lived to 300 years old,
it was bones.
Yeah, she's just there. It was never going to be the case that she was going to go to a nursing home. That just wasn't going to ever be an option. It didn't matter what her care needs were going to be. She was always going to be living with family and being taken care of by family.
Sure.
And that is not unique to a lot of different cultures where it's just like, we are not going to do that. We take care of our family. Family stays here. But in some circumstances, the care needs are so high that just doesn't work. There are some situations where you do need skilled care. You need nurses. You need doctors to provide the care that's needed for this person. And the cost of in-home private care like that is astronomical. It's worse than the nursing home private
I was going to say, that's already a lot.
It's astronomical. So it's hundreds of dollars a day. And a day. So so those can be really tough conversations, but sometimes really necessary, where I'm sitting at a table saying, okay, then let's find an option, a good fit where everybody there speaks Polish. Because your mother is only speaking Polish now. Her memory has gone to a point where she's reverted back, and she's not speaking English anymore. So let's try to figure out something that's going to make her comfortable. Let's find a place where those cultural needs are met. Let's find a place where your aunt is still going to have connections that make her feel comfortable. What does that look like? Those are tough. Those are really personal, intimate conversations, but it's part of it. It's part of the day-to-day.
Okay. That's interesting. That's so interesting. And it's so simple. It's just like talk, have a conversation.
Talk.
That's what the kind of the thread through it all in my mind is
Yeah.
like just the conversation of it
Yeah.
all, like kind of really, it's kind of what you said, is like I wouldn't have a job if people just talked, and that
That's
really
right.
is the
That's
common
exactly right.
thread.
I guess maybe there'd always be the crazies that want to fight no matter what.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll have some sort of a job.
You can't go wrong with that.
The chill stuff would go away.
All right, so I kind of want to move into the kind of next part of this conversation. I kind of want to talk about business, and you work for a large firm, so I'm sure, or a medium-sized firm. But how does that work for you? Because that's what's interesting to me. Like, how has that come? Is that natural to you to like network, to sell, to build teams?
Yeah. So I do love networking. I like that piece of it. I like getting out there. I like getting in front of somebody, grab a coffee, grab a lunch, get into a group. I'm very, very lucky to have the firm that I do with that number of people. We have about 70 plus attorneys. So it's a super collaborative environment, which is really helpful because elder law is only one slice of that. Trust and estates is one slice of that. We have a very large trust and estates group, one of the largest in the city. We have about 25 plus attorneys in that group, which I'm a part of.
Yeah.
But we also have a corporate group. We have a nonprofit group. We have a general litigation group. We have a condo group. All these things that before I started here, there weren't a lot of feelings of, I don't really know how I connect to elder law. I don't really know how I would connect to that. And turns out we all do, because everybody knows somebody. Everybody's going to get that question at some point, because everybody tends to go to the lawyer that helped him with this and just assume that lawyer knows all law. Right. They're going to, this person helped me with a loan. Well, let me call them, because maybe they'll know where I could find an assisted living facility in Burbank, whatever it is. So it has been really helpful for growing my business and getting my name out there because of my colleagues being so collaborative, helping me build referrals. We are lucky enough to have a few people on a marketing team that help us get our names out there as well. But going back to that hard work aspect, I really push myself. I really want to get out there. And because elder law is such a small, elder law, probate, it's such a small world, not just in Cook County, but in general, because I practice in DuPage and Will and Lake, and then every now and then I mistakenly go out to McHenry or Kane. I'm kidding, they're fine. It is a small world, so your reputation is such a big deal, because a lot of my referrals are going to come from colleagues that are either conflicted out of a case, or better yet, which is one of my favorite times, is when a Medicaid or a long-term care or elder law specific issue comes up in a case, and the attorneys that know me in the case know that it's outside of their wheelhouse. So that will be a lot of referrals.
Friend to friend, or
correct.
Colleague to colleague.
Exactly. I don't know. I know enough to know that there's something going on here. I'm going to pull Mallory in so she can maybe help us with this special needs trust, or figure out what this nursing home issue is, or whatever it is, and that's really helpful. I also represent a lot of corporate fiduciaries, banks, when they're acting as a guardian or a trustee or an administrator of an estate. So that can be a really helpful referral source as well, because how that works is essentially there are a bunch of trust officers at the banks that handle these kind of private wealth clients and the accounts. And so they will then reach out and say, hey, we're being pulled into a case. Would you represent us? And that's a really nice way to get referrals, because that just shows that you've built a relationship with that person. They want to come back. It's not, I've got, it's multiple different cases, but all the same trust officer who's just on different cases, because we've got a relationship. They like working with me. I like their style, or whatever it is.
So the reputation part, and being probably consistent with like how you do things, and like you start to build that, like that's I think it's kind of a key to like any business. It's like building that consistent memo, and I always say consistency builds trust. And like that's the way we like to be. It's like you know what you're gonna get, good old fashioned number 9. So it's gonna be awesome. You're gonna get where you need to go. You're gonna look great. You're gonna, in your case, everything's gonna get handled. You're gonna dot your I's and cross your T's.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Also, I will say, because so much of my client base is focused in disability planning, both on the older spectrum, like somebody with dementia, but also younger, like children, families that have a child with autism or something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of my referrals, I'm very fortunate because my brother-in-law, my husband's brother, has disabilities. He was born with disabilities, and he is extremely active in Special Olympics.
Cool.
Illinois. And so my husband and I volunteer for Special Olympics where we go to his events. And then I consider him kind of like maybe the most popular person in the state of Illinois, my brother-in-law. So he is at every
He's
event.
the guy to know.
Oh my gosh. He was, every year they have an event called the Duck Derby, the Rubber Duck Derby, where they pour all these rubber ducks into the Chicago River and whatever. They do a race down the river.
Yeah.
And he was the ambassador one year. He was the duck ambassador one year, which he was so thrilled. But when you are the ambassador, let me tell you this, they go bonkers with the amount of stuff you do. So I would get off of the train at Ogilvy downtown to come to work, and I'd look up, and there he is with Russell Wilson on like a poster.
Oh wow! Like a
posed
billboard?
with his rubber ducky. I'm like, oh my God, he's famous. He's like this famous human. So he's also honestly instrumental for me. It's really helpful when I'm speaking with people because I can connect on a personal level. I know what it is to have these conversations of what happens when you have a family member who has disabilities that you need to plan. What is that going to look like in their future? Where are they going to live? What does their life look like? What does that look like for you and your family?
Totally.
But also just everybody he knows. Right. I told him I should just put him on payroll, I guess, because he just like carries my business card around with him.
I need to know this guy.
He's going to be really jealous when I tell him. He's been on multiple podcasts, so I'm like old news for him.
It's fine. You'll be like, maybe I can get you on. I know, I've got to connect. Maybe I got you.
He's going to have to pencil me in.
Yeah. How about for you? Have you built a team? Do you have a team building situation? How's that?
So when I came over here to Chuhak, I was kind of like this lone wolf a little bit in the elder law world, at least. Now, like I said, the trust and estate team was very robust. So I came in also doing that piece of my practice, and I was contributing that piece. But the elder law piece had not been brought to the table yet. And so, of course, I did my darndest to really explain what it meant, to explain from a business perspective what I think it could be. Yeah. And thank God I have excellent leadership and people who put a lot of faith and support behind me, and they agreed. And so now they have helped me kind of build a team. So it's, I was able to bring in one of my partners who was at our prior firm. We practiced together for, I guess at this point, over a decade. Oh, wow. She is also a certified elder law attorney. So that's incredible, because now if the number is really 13 and not 17, even if it was 17, 2 of the certified elder law attorneys in the whole state at one firm is a big deal. Sure. And for elder law attorneys, it's the idea of a CELA is really big. It's a huge accomplishment. We have another partner who actually practiced in Ohio in elder law and came here. Nice. So he's still licensed in Ohio and he's licensed here, which is super helpful from a Medicaid perspective, because he's able to give ideas on how things were done in Ohio. It's different than Illinois. What are some creative ways that we can think about this particular client? Sure. It also opened up the door to more referral sources, because he's getting
That's a huge
connections.
state.
Right, he brought all these connections. Yeah. We have staff. We have several paralegals that are very well versed in how to do this, which is really important in elder law, because,
the details.
Well,
and the exception to the exception.
That's right. And when you do a Medicaid application, right? My partner Brian always says, if you've never done a Medicaid application, you can't call yourself an elder law attorney. And I kind of agree with him. But there is a 5-year look back period when you apply, which means you apply today. The state wants 5 years of financial records and everything else under the sun, maybe your firstborn child, I don't know, to give to them at the time of application. So we are sending in, right? Because they'll still do hard copies. So we'll send in these just giant binders like we're preparing for trial, and it's just a Medicaid application. So staff are so important. Paralegals are so important there, because I don't want my client to lose every dollar that they have paying me to go through thousands of financial records, right? It's let's figure out how to delegate this out and have a strong team that can get this stuff organized and get it out.
Well, when you say delegate, how was that? Strikes me as the kind of person you are. and what I've learned. How was delegating? How was getting over that hurdle? Because that is a hurdle.
To delegate?
To delegate in
Well,
business, in your
Bobby,
own business.
Yeah, if you have a magic answer to that, I'm all ears. I'll tell you, it's probably one of my biggest challenges. I'm to be perfectly honest.
I would say in the last year of me really growing our team and Memo too.
Yeah.
The ability to let people. It's very hard for me to do that, right?
Yeah.
I like the handle. I like to have my hands on it. But when I started to let people answer questions and let them figure out answers to questions I already knew, I think that's when I started to be able to realize like, I'm moving in a really strong delegation point or the leadership aspect of my business and who I am as just a Bobby. So how did I do that? I think I just let go and realized what I'm doing now isn't working. And when I really looked at the numbers of my business and me doing it all, what's the saying, like, words speak but numbers scream?
Yeah.
And like that's really like, and this probably happened in probably the last like 3 months where there's this epiphany that started to happen.
It's
numbers for me.
Yeah, it's so challenging because I love having control. I feel like if I do it, it'll get done my way, it'll get done correctly, and then we can move on. Yeah. But I'm only one human.
Yeah.
So I will tell you the thing that has forced my hand, probably more than anything with delegation, is actually being a mom.
I was going to say that.
I can't do it all. I want to, and sometimes I tell myself, yes, you can. So get out there and do your billables, and then build the lemonade stand, and then do this thing and do that, and it's like, no, I can't do it all. So that has forced me, because if anything's going to force you, it's going to be little beings that rely on you.
Yeah.
And my husband too. But it is really challenging, and it's frustrating that it is challenging because I love my team, and they're all so smart, and I will talk them up to anybody that will listen. So then the question is why? Why wouldn't I delegate to these people that I know I can trust? So
I think that's an easy statement.
Yeah.
Well, easy concept.
Yeah.
Of course, the thing that got me here is my dedication and my ability to get a lot of things done.
Yeah.
So you're now going against all the things that brought you to where you're at now.
Yeah.
And you're literally saying no.
Yep.
So I think that's why it's easy for anyone to be lost in that.
Yep.
In that thing.
Yeah.
Of ego and all that.
It's so good that you said ego, because I was going to say it's really a practice in humility.
Yeah.
Because I have to say, okay, that person that I really admire, they're really great at delegating. What are they doing that I want to mirror? Or this person over here looks to me as a mentor. They've told me this is what they need to grow. This is what they want to learn. I have to give them that opportunity, or I'm not being the leader that I want to be.
Yeah.
So those are the moments when I'm here, when I'm butts in seats in the office or whatever, working remotely. It's okay. I can't do it all. I have a lot on my plate, and I'm being told, hey, I want an opportunity. Hey, I want this. So maybe that means give this person an opportunity to grow. Give them the assignment. And if it's not perfect, that's okay, because now there's an opportunity that I teach them, and I need to just know that time has to go into that. It's time well spent. It doesn't always have to be like, get it off the table, go, get it off, and check the list. There's investment in that too. It just looks different.
Well, they didn't allow you to go faster.
Yeah.
It was like if you slow down and train someone or get them to the point, it ultimately, and especially in our business, has moved the needle faster.
Yeah.
Our ability to handle more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and it goes back to, me talking about my alma mater. It's watching the confidence grow then in an associate that I've delegated and given that opportunity or have taken the time to teach. That's a really cool thing. Yeah. It's really cool to watch somebody start to grow themselves, and you know that you had a hand in that, because we're all, not just my work is going to go faster, everybody's. If everybody's happy, if people are pumped to do this thing, or they feel at least confident about it, or that they're not going to get their heads bitten off because I'm overwhelmed and need them to do it faster or whatever, then they're going to do better work.
How has strategically being about how you process the inbound stuff, how is that, so I guess an example is, I've learned to process what more operationally, like what's happening. Memo and I have we're still in the early stages, but we're working really hard on figuring out how to operational and be like, here's our pipeline. Here's who's going to do it.
Yep.
And you have this responsibility, I have that responsibility, how's it gonna get out? And then we're like forming the conversation each week of like, what do we have? And that for us for a long time was something that we just didn't, I don't think you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And I think that for us, that was part. Did you have anything like that?
Absolutely. To me, it's also recognizing generational differences, right? Because I'm a millennial, so a millennial, right, we're the best, but we do have a tendency to kind of judge the generations ahead of us, and maybe they're not doing it the way we would do it, or we're not doing it the fastest, or whatever it is. I think it's learning what is it about, so-and-so and so-and-so that I want to try to accomplish. Why can they bring in so much business, but they're not like dying at their desk doing it? It's because they're delegate. They know, they have learned the routine. They have learned this thing. And so there's a lot of me saying, I have to figure out what I can learn from this.
Yeah.
What can I learn from that? What can I take away from that generation? What can I teach to this generation? What can I embrace about my generation? And that is something that I feel so energized right now in my career where I'm at, because I can physically feel that rhythm, that I know I'm in a place where the business development, the intake, the onboarding, there's a good flow. It's a good rhythm right now. And I'm getting there with the, what does that look like? It's through the door. Now what? We're getting there. There's
what's our process?
Some processes that are in the works, but I'm kind of excited to keep watching what that looks like, because especially for the elder law piece of it, because it can and will continue to be a big thing. I think it's going to be growing even more. I'm excited to watch Chuhak's name be the name that people should go to
when thinking
in
about
elder law. You think, who's going to be the voice of authority on that? It's us. It's me. It's my partners. It's this firm. And that I'm excited. I'm excited to bring that in and to watch our team handle it.
I'm so surprised how much, and just, again, from my perspective, how much I've taken to that kind of aspect of, like, to me, it's like the business part of what we do. Like, naturally, I think initially I just felt like a creative, and now I kind of feel like I'm like kind of like morphing myself into like more business Bobby. And then the creative, it's like, wow, that's still fulfilling, and it will always be. There's like just more, the responsibility of me, I think, is changing. And I think Memo feels the same way too. So it's just interesting how all that sort of happens.
Well, and it's fun for me. I'm not naive to think that every attorney likes it, right? Because we talked about at the very beginning, there is a sales aspect. I am selling a service.
Totally.
So is somebody going to look at me and hire me, or are they going to hire somebody else who does what I do, or maybe says they do what I do, but maybe half of the cost or something like that.
Right.
And so, I recognize that, but I also really like that part. I like the sales piece. I like the business piece. And I really like what I do. I like the practice. Some people, and it's totally fine, right? That works. There's a place for everybody, especially I'm lucky enough to be in a firm where there is space for that. There's enough people that people can be in a different role, rather than like if it was a solo, they're going to be a little bit more having to fill all the roles, right? They have to wear all the hats. And that's fine. That's what it is.
Some people like that.
Exactly. Some people like that. Here, if there's somebody who just wants to crank out the work, they want to gently close their door and just work all day and crunch out the work. Great. There's a spot for that. I like being out there. I like meeting the people, building the relationships, seeing who we can help, and then not having my whole day be crunch out the work. I like the work, but I really like being out there.
The sales aspect to everything is interesting. It seems like too, just we're both service based. The relationship, I think I was naive to how big the relation part the relationship part of business would be. And like,
Yeah.
I think that's something recently I've started to really hone in on.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, they're going to buy from me. Like,
Yeah.
people do this a lot. You can find
Yeah.
this, but like the differentiating thing is me. It's like
Right.
my bond with them or what I,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
again, another thing maybe in the last year that like has just kind of flipped.
Well, and of course it's that way, right? If somebody trusts you, they're going to go to you. You and I know each other.
Yeah.
You know who I am. Now, at this point, this is who I am.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah.
I'm a really great actress.
Well,
right?
that's-
So this is who I am. So
Yeah.
if you were to send a referral to me, I will provide top-notch service because I pride myself on it, and
Yeah, yeah.
you know me, so you know you can trust that.
Yeah, yeah.
I know if I send this, she's going to take care of that person. I think that's probably one of the biggest compliments you can get too from somebody that you knew professionally that sends you somebody, especially a family member.
Yeah.
I've had some professional colleagues who I now consider friends that have sent family to me, and I'm like, well, there is. Now that's the gold star. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you sent your family to me. I know you trust me.
Yeah.
That I'm going to take care of your family.
Totally. That yeah. You want to know? Someone just did that, and I think I went amiss. Like I wasn't thinking of it like that, but you're right.
Yeah.
Someone's gonna send their family to you. And you're
It's-
like, you're doing something right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Unless it's like, weird uncle.
Yeah. Well, he said
Freddie,
that too.
who's like,
But he said it was a little weird, but he really
Even
liked
Uncle
it.
Freddie needs a power of attorney.
So I love talking business so much. Like
Yeah.
these little things for me are like really what I've gotten the most out of all of this, because it's just like all of the people that I speak with are like solo. You're not necessarily a solo entrepreneur, but you are like you run your business, and like you are gonna. I'm sure you have the name, which is nice, and that's why you
Yes.
come to somewhere like this
Yes.
to have the name, to have the backing. But it's still, again, it's your own business struggle, and I really love to see how people just do it, because I can't tell you how hard this. For me, it's like this is hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. I can't tell you how many times I'm like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I should just go find an agency, but like, there's something more that we're building
Yeah.
that I find interesting, I think.
There's ownership of it. You
Yeah.
feel this like it's your baby, right?
Intense.
Yes.
Intense, like, I want to make this work.
Well, and are you competitive?
Super competitive.
Because I'm competitive
Yeah.
too. So and I'm always my own worst enemy,
Yeah.
right? I'm competing against myself
Yeah.
most of the time. So that's part of it too, is like, well, I have set this goal. So the only option is to exceed the goal in my brain,
Yeah.
which is probably sick. And
Yeah.
that's fine. I recognize it. But there is, I'm building a book as well. It's not, the firm is like the whole family reunion, and I'm like, this is like my branch of the family tree.
Yeah.
And so I have to think of it that way too. And what does building my book mean for me, and then what does it mean for the firm?
business within the it's your sub business within
That's
the
right.
context of it all.
That's right.
But that's
And-
cool that you're allowed to have that.
Yeah, and I used to fantasize about hanging my own shingle and opening my own shop, being a solo, and there is a very specific. You're right. There's a very specific reason why my legal journey came here, and not that, and for a million different reasons. But it is really nice to have the structure, to have the collaboration, the team, the gusto behind me, and the support that I feel like I get. That's nice. That's nice to have that piece so that I can focus on
what you want to do
Right.
best, or like
Exactly.
what you do best.
exactly.
So, I'd be amiss. Part of this whole thing is social media.
Yes.
And this is something I'm excited to talk to you about. I think it's a huge play. I think it's a big missed opportunity, more specifically in law.
Yeah.
And even more in your niche of it. I don't know one person that does elder law and then puts content out. I will say this, since talking to more lawyers, I am seeing more lawyers on social media. So
Yeah.
I want to know what your thoughts are on it. And
I love it. I have been really in the last few years, I would say, trying really hard to be much more productive with it. Like I said, there's a few marketing individuals here who have helped a little bit in that process. The last year or so, the firm has started doing things called Chuhak chats that we put up on LinkedIn, which is fun.
Cool.
I've done probably like 4 or 5 of those where it's, just quick 20, 30-second video of tips, tricks, whatever it is related to elder law. May is Elder Law Awareness Month.
Yeah.
And so for the last few years, May, we've made sure to definitely do a lot of content, little blurbs or posts or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I love it. I like that. I would like to be better at it.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of being the face that people see, whether it's reposting or posting my own thing or posting a video or whatever. I agree with you. There's so much opportunity, especially in the elder law world, because elder law touches so many things. It touches estate planning. It touches disabilities. It touches litigation.
Yeah.
There's so many pieces that people don't know that it could really, I think it could really reach a lot of people that don't.
It's a super broad audience because everyone has an elderly person in there. You know what I mean?
And that kind of goes back to also that maybe it's not necessarily the elderly person that sees what I post or something, but their kid might.
Their child.
Or their grandkid. Yep. Or their neighbor. Yep. Or somebody because, they saw something that got shared and somebody said, oh yeah, I heard, Bobby down the street did blah, blah, blah. And it can be a really good way to kind of get at least some tips out there that make people think, is this something I should be thinking about? Is it something I should be aware of?
That's our biggest, that's like our foundational piece with content. We think like any brand starts with information or like education. Like obviously there's trends, there's different things you can do, but like if you're not educating people on what you do and how you do it, that's the biggest abyss.
Yeah.
Like that's like you're missing the whole point.
Well, and I do lecture quite a bit. I'll go and I'll do speaking engagements, either to lawyers or to non-lawyers too. Which is also kind of fun because then you are really in the community. You're at a library or you're at somebody's. I've spoken to my husband's employee resource group before about disability planning or something. Those are.
Even that is a perfect place to make content.
Yes, and it would be. It's.
Well, I mean, like this, like you do a lecture for 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
It's like there's this, just like this podcast.
Yeah.
There's so much content.
Yeah, that's a really good. I haven't even thought about that. I'm always like, here, make sure to take a picture of me while I'm talking.
Use that stuff. You say gold. Like you've said so much, even on this. You've said so much stuff about your business. You gave like, here are the things you should be doing. Like I can read off the clips in my head already for you, and that's what you should be thinking about.
That's really
like
good.
Your
that's a really
lecture,
good point.
and then you should be sending it to your. And I'm sure you do email campaigns, but using your lecture in your email campaigns, like all that stuff. Like video is. There's so many ways to use it.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point because. I also find that I will like go back to say the same little like quips that I'll come back to, and those I think also will get. Those are what spark people coming to ask me a question afterwards or something like that. If I lecture on disabilities,
sure.
I always say like disabilities don't care how rich you are.
Sure.
So a lot of times I'll be talking to some of our estate planners here at this firm. They're doing ultra high net worth planning. They're doing tax planning for multi-million dollar estates, and a terrible problem to have, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with my $90 million. But I'll get pulled into these meetings sometimes because they have all this money and then they had a child with Down syndrome. And they think, I don't need to talk to Mallory. I'm not going to ever need Medicaid. But then I come into the meeting and I get to say, okay, well, guess what? Down syndrome doesn't care how rich you are because the programs that person needs, you're only going to get it through these public programs. You're only going to get it through this. And I know how to do that. Or, sure, this person has this disability, but guess what? When you leave $70 million to that person, you're going to destroy all the programming and housing that they had put in place because you just over-resourced them. So how do we put that in a trust that protects them?
Right.
You do need that information. So those are the things that I like when I'm speaking. Those are little moments that I like to kind of bring back to people, and that's probably something you're right. I should be using that content.
That is the best. You're literally making that is the information that people need to know.
Yeah.
And you can make that in such like that was 30 seconds long what you
Yeah.
just said, and that's perfect. That's like
Yeah.
literally social media to a T.
Yeah.
It's just
You're making me excited.
yeah, no, there's a lot of natural growth with it, and something I always say too with all this like educational content, they're your little soldiers, is what
Yeah.
we always call them. They're your like when someone gets to your page and it's late at night and they're just flicking through it and you just sold them again and again and again, like wow, they're so smart.
Yeah.
And that's the point, and it's hard to. I think people make it too complicated.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, stupid. That's what's happening.
I think that's something I need to remind myself. We don't need to go into the intricacies of subsection such and such of so-and-so. What do you need to think about? Just think about this thing because I can help you with it.
Well, yeah, it's the sizzle to the steak.
Yeah. Oh,
You just give them a little sizzle, and they'll come for the steak.
I like that.
Yeah. It's
Sizzle to the steak.
It's literally all it is. And there's other things, right? There's client stuff. It's so robust. But again, my searches always start with content, always start with YouTube or start with social media. And maybe I'm an outlier, but I don't think I will always be the outlier. I think that's how things are changing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think you are either. That's for sure.
Yeah, but I've really loved having this conversation.
Yeah, thank you
with
so much. I've been so excited.
So one more thing.
Yes.
I forgot. This camera would be best.
Yes.
I want you to do a shameless plug. Tell people where they can find you.
Yeah.
All the fun things. Anything new you have coming on.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Well, again, Mallory Moreno. I'm a partner here at Chuhak and Tecson. I lead our elder law practice group. You can email me at mmoreno, MORENO, at chuhak.com. It's CHUHAK.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, same Mallory Moreno. You can find me on Facebook, Mallory Jennings Moreno. That was my maiden name, Jennings. You can find any content that I've ever done for the firm is on my bio on the chuhak.com website. Upcoming stuff. We are going to be at some of the senior expos in the northwest suburbs soon, so look for us on September 12th in Schaumburg. You can look for us in October in Arlington Heights. You can also look for us in Evanston and Skokie, and then just throughout the summer, just doing stuff. I'm really involved with an organization called NALA, National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, so we're going to have some events coming up in the fall and some in the summer, so check that out. And I just really appreciate all the time that you've given me.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.